It was the 4th of September. The DJSC started this syntropic agroforestry project with her sons and some boys from the hoods like Eric, who is now a certified syntropic agroforestry teacher. And of course her brother Gift too. Only 1 month later, diversity kicks in.
Trees. This is like yellow berry. I forgot the name, Bora in Kuil, but we got another name for it. Then we got a banana over here too. Seed fence, the 2 bananas. And then we got a cherry tree here. It is a guava tree. And here we got a banana again. And we got an orange tree. And here we got an avocado tree. You see here maize. You see the banana, the jack beans, you see another maize, you see arrowroot. We got soya, this is kale. Got more potatoes. As soon as the sun is not able to penetrate the soil anymore, then the water use starts dropping down. And also because of the cooling effect of photosynthesis, more water will be condensated instead of evaporated.
Only after 3 months after implementation the forest grew bigger than DJSC herself.
Okay.
Papao coming next. Here we see the result after 4 months. And this is the actual situation 11 months after implementation. A cherry tree, Suriname cherry tree, is growing underneath a huge and also huge cassava tree. Here we got coffee, pineapple as low strata, both are low strata, growing underneath a medium high banana. Here's the guava tree. More coffee, arrowroots, not a banana. The coffee and arrowroots are low strata, like the pineapples too. And you see next to the banana you see the pawpaw, which is emergent. Needs the full spectrum of sunlight. The soil got very improved thanks to continuous mulching, chopping and dropping of biomass. No weeds ever grow anymore in the tree lines anymore. Underneath the canopies of cassava you see the future forest, soursop, and also a very nice thriving coffee tree. And of course we also planted timberwood. This is a caravelia, another coffee tree with a young leaf growing underneath the canopy of cassava. Here we see a crafted mango, also benefiting of the shade that the cassava brings for him. And of course we also planted a lot of biomass trees like lucina, being chopped and dropped continuously. Here you see eucalyptus and coffee, an avocado tree, an orange growing underneath cassava again. Orange is medium strata, profiting also from the high level of the cassava. This is a very interesting achievement. In the beginning we were not able to grow vegetables in the vegetable line, thus the quality of the soil was not good enough, so our vegetables were constantly being eaten by pests. But thanks to continuous chopping and dropping of biomass, the grass lines, and also Mexican sunflower and castor plants, the quality of the soil got updated and we can now grow vegetables like kale and Swiss chard. So if you want to plant vegetables without pests, you need to plant biomass first, like the Mombasa grass in our case. Here you see a gooseberry. If you ask us about the irrigation rate of the farm has become very low. The tree lines are never being irrigated anymore, so means that the very thirsty coffee and also banana and arrowroots grow without any irrigation thanks to the biomass in the soil.
Hi everybody, my name is Roland van Renen. I'm also known as the forest farmer.
Hello, I'm Esther. also known as DJAC, the urban farmer. We are extremely glad that you chose a way out of the despair and choose to direct your energy towards solutions. Syntropic agroforestry offers proven solutions against climate change, global warming, loss of diversity, loss of healthy soils, droughts and floodings, and food security, deforestation, desertification, and conflicts that are the results of mentioned challenges.
Syntropic agroforestry restores soil health at a very fast pace. It increases the humidity in the farms. It restores biodiversity and provides abundant harvests of clean organic food.
Working in a syntropic agroforestry farm gives meaning to your life. Let me underline this with the story of Ursula Atzman working on the Caribbean island of Antigua.
They asked unemployed drunkards to come and work on the farm. Working hard in the farm gave back the shine in their eyes. All of them choose to work over booze.
Syntropic agroforestry transforms people's lives if you witness every day the orchestrated harmony between all living creatures.
Harmony and cooperation instead of a cold competition. Abundance instead of scarcity. It makes you look different to human relations and society in general.
Syntropic agroforestry will make you look differently to the indigenous people of the world. It is them who did practice it, living simple but abundant lives full of holistic wisdom.
But these are things you all know already. Why else do you choose to participate in this course?
Let us now look at the semantics of the syntropic agroforestry. First, let's observe the meaning of agroforestry, which means the integration of trees within agriculture. Agroforestry can be simply planting a monocrop between a monoculture of tree rows.
There are many advantages of including trees in the farm, but to understand the difference between syntropic agroforestry and normal agroforestry, we have to study the meaning of syntropy.
Syntropic was first used by the mathematician Fantapié in 1941 to describe the tendency towards energy concentration, order, organization, and life.
Buckminster Fuller described it as follows: a tendency towards order and symmetrical combinations, designs of ever more adventurous and orderly patterns.
Syntropy is the opposite of entropy, which means lack of order or predictability, gradual decline into disorder.
Our teachers described syntropy as an accumulation of energy in a development from simple to complex. Entropy, on the other hand, stands for losing of energy.
A practical example will be the covering of our soils with organic material, which increases humidity, soil biology, nutrients, and thus life.
A bare soil, on the other hand, leads to entropy, the losing of water, the burning of nutrients by the sun, the loss of soil biology. This process is also known as erosion.
Almost every other form of agriculture loses energy and therefore needs a lot of inputs. Inputs like fertilizers, pesticides, and herbicides, and such, organic or synthetic.
It is exactly this tendency towards energy concentration, order, organization, and life, or simply said syntropy, that makes a difference.
So even if there are numerous advantages of normal agroforestry to conventional agriculture, these farms will never reach the balanced complexity of real self-sustaining ecosystem.
Syntropic agroforestry therefore evolves and transforms over time and space, always towards the increase of quantity and quality of consolidated life, says Anne Scott.
This increase of quantity and quality of consolidated life is what makes external input absolute. Pests won't destroy your crops anymore.
A syntropic farm offers that particular ecosystem in which vegetables love to grow without any external inputs of fertilizers or pesticides.
That's all the difference between organic farming and syntropic farming. We don't need to do any form of pest control, while in organic farming the pest control depends on energy inputs, however not of synthetic character.
Instead of pest control, we acknowledge the function of pests as a warning signal that our farms still lack energy. That lack of energy is the cause for unhealthy plants.
It's the function of pests in nature to get rid of weak or unhealthy plants, to preserve the strong plants. Healthy plants cannot be eaten by pests. They die if they try.
Before we dive deeper in the natural tendency towards the development from entropy to syntropy, or from desert to forest, let us focus on the importance of trees in agroforestry. First,
trees work as a windbreak, directing the entropic tendency of the wind away from the farm. Wind is a severe drying factor, and a windbreak prevents this.
a windbreak consisting of trees directs 60% of the wind to upwards, where it can reach still about 20 times the height of the trees. This creates turbulence in the clouds with showers of rain as a result.
The wind also takes with it bacteria that trees especially cultivate for that purpose in their canopies. Once these bacteria get in touch with clouds, water vapor condensates around them with the rain as a result.
Trees literally create rain and are responsible for 75% of all rainfall. Cut down forests and the rain will disappear or becomes irregular. Blending forests becomes synonym with blending rain.
Trees function as deep wells pumping water from the deep groundwater layers. They will irrigate that water in the topsoil to uptake nutrients. In doing this, plants that grow close to the trees benefit too.
Trees keep the soil moist and prevent erosion. Trees create shade and thus create natural shade houses.
Trees cool down the atmosphere due to photosynthesis. This cooling makes condensation and precipitation possible. 85% of all precipitation is caused by trees.
They will add nitrogen and carbon to the soil, which increases fertility. Trees offer also shelter for predators of pests, like birds.
Syntropic agroforestry is all about acceleration of succession.
Through the process of succession, plant life moves towards species that are capable of capturing and handling more and more energy.
Let us take a cactus as an example. A cactus doesn't need much water from its surroundings to survive. It can easily survive in places where the energy supply is low, like in deserts.
Yet this energy-effective cactus accumulates a lot of energy in the form of water. It doesn't necessarily collect this water for itself, but for plants that need more water to survive in the desert.
A cactus might grow for a couple of decennia, but as it grows bigger, it can become so heavy that during a storm, it tumbles down.
All that organic matter full of water creates a space that captures more energy. And the seed of a tree or a shrub like a thorny acacia might find in it the initial water that it needs for sprouting.
What have we learned so far from this example? That one plant paves way for another, one that depends on more energy, and that nature uses destruction to ignite succession.
Now, let's fast forward this succession. Where once was a desert, we find now a savanna, full of thorny acacia trees. It might have taken hundreds of years to reach this stage.
Note that both cactus and acacia have thorns. This means two things: that nature values their work in the succession and wants to secure their survival.
It also means that the general accumulated energy is still very low. that resources are scarce and thus the plants need to defend themselves by all means necessary.
As we will learn later, photosynthesis is the key in accumulation of energy. The leaves of acacia are very small, and when it is getting too dry, the tree decides to drop its leaves altogether.
This means that the level of photosynthesis is very low, so the succession moves very slow. Even the biomass accumulation through the dropping of its leaves is minimal.
So an acacia forest could continue to exist for hundreds or thousands of years without any significant progress.
Now imagine that an ancient syntropic agroforestry farmer comes along in the shape of an elephant. It pushes a few acacia trees down, break their trunks in two.
That radical pruning from the elephant is very important, for it breaks the dormancy or the senescence of the trees. In other words, it rejuvenates them.
Two important things will happen now. The pruning of the elephant creates a growth pulse. All of a sudden the tree awakes from its sleep and slumber and produces a growth hormone, gibberellic acid.
This translates itself in the growth of taller branches and bigger leaves. It increases photosynthesis and thus accumulation of energy.
In the meantime, all the pruned wood in the shape of trunks and branches covers the soil. Biomass is increased. The soil can cool down and nutrients and organic matter create circumstances for a new succession.
The next time that the tree sheds its leaves, not all those leaves will be blown away by the wind or won't be burned by the sun anymore.
Between the tree trunks, those leaves are accumulated. And slowly but surely energy accumulates too. Humidity increases and seeds that might have been dropped there by birds long time ago will now sprout.
The same gibberellic acid that tree produced after its pruning by the elephant not only creates a pulse growth for itself but also stimulates the growth of the seeds.
Et voila! A small ecosystem of different plants and trees now occupies the little niche between the tree trunk and branches.
Thanks to the accumulated energy in that spot, plants that need more energy can survive now. Plants and trees with bigger leaves are shading the soil now.
A shaded soil means a cooler soil, and a cooler soil means more water retention. Because of this accumulation of moisture in the soil, plants with bigger leaves dare to grow there now.
Bigger leaves means an increase in photosynthesis, which, as we have seen before, is the key factor in energy accumulation.
Carbon from the atmosphere can now be stored in the soil. That increases fertility. The heating influence of both carbon dioxide and the sun are being transformed into sugar and coolness.
It's exactly this coolness of the leaves that will trap water vapor that tries to escape in the air. This water vapor now condensates under the big cool leaves and drip down to the soil again.
A process that can be compared with the morning dew. Slowly but surely the water level is building up in the soil, and plants start to trust their environment more and more, and there will be no need anymore for aggressive defense mechanisms like thorns.
What have we learned so far? We learned that natural succession in nature moves very slow. Whenever the development stagnates, some kind of distraction is needed to break the pattern of the senescence.
It makes us look different to destructive forces, and we might recognize a loving guiding force behind it, or as Ernest Kutz calls it, unconditional love.
We have learned about the importance of photosynthesis, that is the engine behind the accumulation of energy. Photosynthesis is the process in which plants create their own food.
This is the definition that we all learned in school. It is the process by which carbon dioxide and sunlight with water will be transformed into sugars. The heat of both carbon dioxide and the sun transforms into coolness.
It is this coolness that we need for water conservation. The more densely planted plants, the more photosynthesis, the more water will accumulate.
Sugar and carbon are stored in the soil and increase fertility at least when the soil is covered with organic material.
This simple example of succession gives us already some deep insight in the principles of syntropic agroforestry, which are: keep the soil covered always,
maximization of photosynthesis, stratification, succession and management.
concerning the management, as syntropic agroforestry farmers, we will do the work of the storm and the elephant by regular pruning to keep our forests young and vital and accelerate succession.
This was a practical story about succession. As you could see, this simple example touches nearly everything you need to know about syntropic agroforestry.
It would be good to pause the video now and try to remember the vital lessons you have learned.
You might say, but what about other climates? Because we gave an example about a desert climate. Well, the underlying principles are the same. It is a movement from entropy to syntropy.
A good example in a moderate climate, or even cold climate, is a tree that grows on a rock. You might wonder, how could a tree grow there?
So if we take this rock as a starting point, a bald rock, the first thing in the succession might be lesion, to occupy the surface of the rock.
After a couple of decennia, they might be succeeded by mosses. The mosses accumulate biomass and also capture organic material between their leaves.
The next species might be grasses, that will attract animals that graze them and leave some manure on the rock. Either the wind or that manure might have brought a tree seed there.
A seed that couldn't survive when the rock was still empty, devoid of mosses or grass. But thanks to the succession, the tree can now grow tall. Eventually, its roots might break the rock in pieces, which leads to another cycle of succession.
Talking about cycles, we recognize three major cycles in the succession: colonizer, state of accumulation and state of abundance. While those cycles may take thousands of years to reach in the state of abundance.
As syntropic agroforestry farmers, we strive to get in the stage of abundance as fast as possible. Why? Because in the stage, there is so much energy accumulated, so much life consolidated that farming is supported by nature.
In the stage of abundance, no irrigation is needed, no pest control, no weeding. Exactly all headaches of farmers will disappear.
It might take hundreds of years for a forest to establish itself, but with syntropic agroforestry, we can accelerate the succession so fast that we can do it in a few years.
In this course, we will explain everything about how we can achieve that. But before that, we need to know more about succession.
The three mentioned cycles are each divided into small cycles. Cycles we imitate in planning of our farms. We recognize a placenta stage, a secondary stage, and a climax.
In our farms, we even divide them into placenta 1 and 2, and secondary stage 1 and 2, but later more about that.
In our farms, placenta consists of vegetables that create better circumstances for the trees that will succeed them.
In nature, a placenta typically consists of plants that can endure the toughest circumstances. They are typically pioneering species. Examples of these species are mosses, grasses, cactus, thorny shrubs, and plants which we consider as weeds or invasive. As the name placenta suggests, these heroic plants literally act as a mother plant for species that need more energy, and species that will be terribly lost when there is no placenta around.
Most tree planting initiatives fail because they don't include a placenta. While planting trees, the young trees are screaming for water, nutrients, and organic matter.
A placenta nurtures more vulnerable species that are around already, and it will dominate the next stage.
The placenta accumulates energy through increasing photosynthesis, continuous dropping of organic matter, and sequestration of carbon.
As soon as enough energy has been accumulated, a new cycle will start. A cycle that allows trees that need more energy to grow and dominate now.
Now it is the turn of these trees to accumulate more energy until enough energy is accumulated to reach a climax phase.
As the name suggests, it is a phase where trees grow big and eventually mature. Slowly the development stops when senescence becomes the order.
But nature has different plans. It strives to syntropy to reach the stages of abundance, and senescence is leading to entropy.
This is the time that nature interferes with destruction, like we have seen before. It can be a storm, an earthquake, lightning, or animals.
What looks like a distraction is an enormous growth impulse. All the wood on top of the soil increases fertility.
New available sunlight creates perfect circumstances for seeds waiting for an opportunity like this to start a new placenta. A placenta with a lot more energy accumulated than the first one. So we have planted Popo as our emergent, followed by from emergent we go to high, from high we go to medium, from medium we go to low. Then in between we also put in vegetables. Vegetable, grass, tree. So you do this tree line, grass line, vegetable line.
So vegetable inakuwa line moja.
Yeah, ya katikati.
Tree ya kwanza,
grass,
vegetable.
Whoa.
Hey, I'm Master Jerry, aka DJ AC, and I'm a DJ by profession, and I'm also a certified syntropic agroforestry teacher. And today we are going to talk about food forests, which is part of permaculture, but my specialty is syntropic agroforestry. Syntropic agroforestry consists of two words. The first one is syntropic. Syntropic means accumulation of energy, which is the opposite of entropy. Entropy is losing of energy, and the other side, syntropic, is accumulation of energy or harvesting the energy. And the other one is agroforestry, which is agriculture plus forestry. And if you want to start a syntropic farm, you must follow these 5 principles. It's going to guard you very good, and it's going to work magic in your farms if you use these 5 principles, and it's a must to use them. The first one, I'll just go through them, then I'll explain later. The first one is no bare soil. Keep your soil covered at all times. The second one is maximization of photosynthesis. The third one is stratification. The fourth one is succession, and the last one is management. Now we go back to the first one. Let me explain it. Now bare soil means to keep your soil covered at all times. Cover your farms the way you dress yourself every morning. You must cover your soil at all times. We use mulch, cover crops, and planting densely. That's also covering your farms. For one, when you keep your soil covered, it protects water retention, soil erosion, attracts microorganisms, and your soil will turn into humus and so forth. There are so many good things that comes out of protecting soil from the sun. And if another reason, let me make a joke. Leaving your soil uncovered, it's like leaving your wallet empty. You are not money. It can just fly off from your wallet. And to prevent that, why don't you just cover yourself, cover your soil? Covering your soil is everything. Mulch, it's the new gold. The second principle of syntropic is maximization of photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is the process by which plants make their own food by transforming sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water. And by this process, when it takes place, that's when the cooling down appears. The cooling the place, that's what makes the water remain in our farm. We don't lose water, we don't lose energy. The energy remains in our farms. The energy we have harvested, it's kept in our farms. As I said before, syntropic is accumulating of energy. So the energy we accumulate by using the second principle, we keep that energy in our farms. And when we go to the third principle, it's like from the second and the second and the third principle, they go hand in hand. This is where we plant in layers. That's stratification. Planting in layers is every plant has its own need of sunlight. So you have to know which plants needs what amount of sunlight. That's what stratification is. And if to achieve this stratification, we must go back to our second principle, to use the sunlight, to make good use of the sunlight that we are provided with. Every plant has its own need of sunlight. That's our third principle. And when I say planting in layers, it's planting our crops according to their need of sunlight. We have plants that are emergents that need 100 to 80% of sunlight. That one we call it emergent. From that we go to high. High needs 80 to 60% of sunlight. We have another layer called medium. Medium needs 60 to 40% of sunlight. Then we have the last layer, which is low layer, which takes 40 to 20% of sunlight. If your farm is like 10 meters, to plant emergents, you only have to plant 20% of emergents because they need the highest amount of sunlight. So you only plant 20%. The cover they take. They need the sunlight is, remember the sunlight is 80%. The space they take is only 20%. The higher layer you plant 40%. They need the sunlight of 60%, but the space they'll take in your 10 meters farm is only 40%. The medium layer, you plant 60% of your medium layer. Then the highest cover, the lower strata takes the most space because they don't need that much sunlight. They can grow well in shade. That takes up to 80% of our 10 meter space. Now let's count how much energy we've harvested by planting our syntropic farm. You start by 80 plus 60 plus 40 plus 20. That comes to 200% of energy we've harvested by planting our syntropic farms. Compared to the normal monocropping, that goes to only 100%. We lose the rest. Why do we want to lose the rest? We can harvest as much energy as we want by planting densely, planting the syntropic way. And now let's move to our fourth principle, which is succession. Succession is one plant paving way to the other, and succession in time and in place, like how plants follow each other. You can plant them all in the same day, but harvest time in different times. Like you can't harvest cucumber the same time you harvest maize. So if you plant cucumber and cabbage and maize, you will start with cucumber, then cucumber will be succeeded by cabbage. From cabbage you go to maize. Then that's how succession works. In succession, we plant everything in the same day. We plant from first month to like 30 years, going in succession. You start with 1 month, which is cucumber. Let's take cucumber. Then vegetables. After that, you go to cassava, bananas, pawpaws. Then you start harvesting your fruit trees, going onwards. And our last principle is management. Management is keeping your farm in shape, like pruning grass, pruning trees, and we get mulch from there. We prune, and by pruning, when you prune trees and grass, when the grass wants to grow, it pulls all it gives all the energy of growing, the impulse of growing, to the whole farm. Like when you prune trees, they also do the same. When they are growing, they take the whole farm together. So they grow this. That's how the management works. And by pruning, that's the accumulation of energy. That's how we accumulate the energy. You prune, then the impulse of growing goes to the whole farm. So everything starts to grow again. So we keep our farms young by pruning all the time. And keeping the structures intact by pruning, everything falls into its own place. The basic design of syntropic agroforestry consists of 5 beds, which is the first bed is a tree line, which we plant trees and vegetables also. We plant fruit trees, timber trees, and vegetables. The second one is a grass line. This is the engine of our farm. And the third one is a vegetable line. The fourth one is a grass line again. And the fifth one is also the tree line. And in these tree lines, at first we plant vegetables around the trees. The placenta. around the trees. These vegetables act as mothers to our young trees. They nurture them. And for this grass, these two lines of grass, we use them to feed the birds. And the middle one is the vegetable line, is the line that you can keep on planting. But for these two, at some point when the trees are big, you won't be able to plant your vegetables there. You'll only be planting in this middle one. And at some point when your farm has accumulated enough energies, you can also plant vegetables in these two lines. And that's my short presentation about syntropic agroforestry. So if you have any questions or you want to add anything, feel free.
We have come to the end of our first lesson. It's now for you time to answer some questions to see how much of the information you did internalize already. Please send the answers to rolandvanreden@gmail.com.
Try to explain in your own words what syntropy means.
What is the difference between traditional agroforestry and syntropic agroforestry?
What is the difference between organic farming and syntropic farming when it comes to pests?
What is the function of pests in nature?
Name a few advantages of having trees in your farm.
How would you describe succession in your own words?
If syntropic agroforestry is all about accelerating succession, can you tell us how we could speed up a transformation of desert to a forest?
What is the function of destruction in nature?
How do we imitate the function of destruction in our farms?
Can you explain the difference between small leaves and bigger leaves in the succession?
Try to explain the importance of photosynthesis in the succession.
Explain why our soils should be covered always.
Can you explain the name placenta?
Syntropic agroforestry is also known as planting water. Can you explain this?
What are the 5 principles of syntropic agroforestry?
What do we mean with senescence?
What are the advantages of the stage of abundance when it comes to farming?
Can you describe or give your own example of succession?